still remember the night like it happened yesterday. The mansion was quiet, the chandeliers glowing faintly, and the air heavy with a silence I couldn't quite explain. I had just returned from a long day at the firm, exhausted, carrying the weight of contracts, meetings, and the never-ending responsibility of being both a CEO and a single father. My son Daniel was my only light in that darkness, fragile, gentle, but the heartbeat of my world. When I walked in, he was in the living room, struggling with his homework. His small face lit up when he saw me. "Dad," he said, running toward me. I lifted him up in my arms and pressed a kiss to his forehead. "How's my champ?" Before he could answer, I felt a hand slide across my shoulder. It was Sophia, my girlfriend. She wore her beauty like a crown, elegant, flawless, always dressed like she belonged in the magazines. She smiled at me sweetly, but her eyes always carried something deeper. Possessiveness. A fire that made me uneasy sometimes, though I tried to ignore it. Dinner was served by the staff, but one face stood out among them, Monali, the new waitress. She wasn't like the others, quiet, graceful, but there was a sadness in her eyes, like she carried stories untold. She was the kind of person you'd overlook if you only valued appearances, but her presence carried an honesty that demanded to be felt. That evening, as plates were cleared, Monali hesitated near me. She glanced at Sophia, then at Daniel, then finally leaned closer, her voice trembling as if weighed down by fear. "Sir, your girlfriend won't let your son go." The words struck me like a thunderbolt. For a second I froze, my brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" I asked, whispering. She shook her head quickly, her hands trembling as she gathered the cutlery. I shouldn't say more, just be careful." Sophia appeared right then, her voice sharp. "Monali, why are you standing there whispering?" Her eyes darted between us. "Go finish your work." Monali's lips pressed into a thin line and she hurried away. I chuckled nervously, brushing it off. She's probably just stressed. Maybe she misread something. But that night, when I tucked Daniel into bed, I couldn't shake her words. "Your girlfriend won't let your son go." Was she implying Sophia was jealous of my bond with Daniel? Or worse, that she could actually harm him? The thought felt absurd. Sophia had been with me for a year, supportive, charming, always standing by my side in public. She had money of her own, status of her own. What could she possibly gain from my son? The following morning, I tried to ignore the unease. I kissed Daniel goodbye before sending him off to school and left for work. But as I sat in the boardroom, voices of my executives echoing around me, I kept replaying Monali's trembling eyes in my mind. She didn't look like a woman lying for attention. She looked like someone desperate to warn me, someone who had seen something I hadn't. That evening, when I returned, I found Daniel in the garden with Sophia. She was holding him close, a little too close, whispering something in his ear. When Daniel saw me, he tried to run toward me, but her grip tightened for a fraction of a second before she let go. My heart skipped a beat. "Daddy!" he cried, running into my arms. Sophia smiled innocently, walking over. "He was just telling me about his day at school," she said smoothly. "You know how attached he is to me." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to dismiss Monali's words as paranoia, but deep inside something was cracking. Later that night, when Sophia went upstairs, Monali found me in the hallway. Her face was pale, her eyes darting nervously. "Mr. Watson," she whispered urgently, "please don't ignore me this time. Your girlfriend, she isn't who you think she is. She has plans, and your son—" Her words were cut short by the sound of footsteps. Sophia appeared again, her voice sharp and cold. "Why are you always lurking around, Monali?" Monali flinched, bowing her head. I was just finishing my duties, ma'am." Sophia's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Good. Know your place." As Sophia walked away, Monali's eyes met mine. They weren't just eyes. They were a storm, begging me to listen, but I didn't. Not then. I laughed it off again, telling myself it was nothing but imagination. After all, how could the woman I loved ever want to hurt my child? I was wrong. Terribly wrong. I told myself Monali was exaggerating, that her trembling voice, her fearful eyes, were just the nervousness of a new employee. But in the days that followed, I began noticing things that gnawed at me like tiny cracks spreading across glass. It started small, Daniel's laughter wasn't as bright as it used to be. He was quieter, more withdrawn. One evening I found him sketching in his notebook. The picture was of a boy in a cage with a tall woman in a red dress standing outside, smiling. "Danny, what's this?" I asked gently, kneeling beside him. He froze, then shook his head quickly. "It's nothing, Dad, just a story I made up. I wanted to push further, but something in his eyes told me he was scared. And that terrified me more than the drawing itself." Meanwhile, Sophia's affection toward me seemed to grow, but her behavior toward Daniel became strange. She hovered over him, always insisting on putting him to bed, on deciding what he should eat, on controlling even his smallest choices. Whenever I tried to step in, she would laugh it off. "You spoil him too much, Watson," she'd say, her tone sugary, but her eyes sharp. "He needs structure, discipline. I'm only helping." The word felt hollow. Monali, on the other hand, kept trying to reach me. One night, after Sophia had gone out to a charity gala, Monali approached me in the study. Her hands trembled as she placed a folded piece of paper on my desk. "I know you don't trust me," she said, her voice quivering. "But please, read this when you're alone. It's about her." Before I could respond, she turned and rushed away. I unfolded the paper later that night. It was a report, handwritten, messy, but detailed. Manali claimed she had overheard Sophia on the phone speaking in harsh tones. Words like custody, ownership, take him away, control the fortune were scribbled in quotes. I threw the paper down, pacing. Could this be true? Was Sophia after my son because he was the heir to everything I owned? The thought made my stomach churn, but the rational side of me argued back. "No, Watson, you've been alone too long. You're paranoid. Sophia loves you. She wouldn't." The next morning shattered my fragile denial. I went to Daniel's room and found him sitting on the bed, his eyes red from crying. "What happened, champ?" I asked softly, pulling him close. He hesitated, glancing at the door as if making sure no one was listening. Then he whispered, "Dad, Sophia doesn't like me being with you. She says you'll forget me one day. That she's the only one who really cares." My chest tightened. "Daniel, that's not true. You're my whole world." He nodded, but his small fingers dug into my shirt as if he was holding on for dear life. That night, when Sophia tucked him in, I lingered by the doorway, unseen. Her voice was low, but I caught fragments. "You don't need to cry. I'm the one who will stay. Your father is too busy for you. Soon it'll just be you and me." My blood ran cold. I stormed in, forcing a smile. "Everything okay in here?" Sophia turned, startled, but recovered quickly. "Of course. I was just calming him down. He has nightmares, poor boy." Daniel looked at me, his eyes wide and pleading. I saw the truth in them, but my heart wasn't ready to accept it fully. Not yet. The next day I confronted Manali. "Why are you doing this?" I demanded in the kitchen while the staff busied themselves elsewhere. "What do you have against Sophia?" Her eyes filled with tears. "Nothing, sir. I don't hate her. I fear her. Because I've seen what she's capable of." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then whispered. "She tried to lock Daniel in the storeroom 2 nights ago when you were away." I stopped her. "That's why she despises me now." My breath caught. Rage surged through me, but disbelief held it back. "Do you have proof?" Manali shook her head. "Only Daniel knows, but he's too scared to tell you." At that moment, Sophia entered the kitchen. Her eyes darted between us, narrowing with suspicion. "What's going on here?" she asked coldly. "Nothing," I said quickly. Too quickly. Sophia smirked, but her eyes burned into Manali. "Good, because I don't like my staff meddling in things they shouldn't." She walked away, but her heels echoed like warning shots. That night, I couldn't sleep. Manali's words, Daniel's drawings, Sophia's whispers, they all collided in my mind. Could I really be so blind? Could the woman I planned to marry be plotting against my son? As I sat by Daniel's bedside watching him sleep, I made a silent vow. If there was even a chance Manali was right, I needed to know the truth. I needed to protect my son, but I had no idea how far Sophia was willing to go. Until the night everything came crashing down. For weeks, I balanced between denial and suspicion, caught in the storm of 2 voices. The warmth of Sophia's charm and the desperate warnings of Manali. But the balance didn't last. It was a Friday evening when I returned home earlier than expected. The mansion was unusually silent. Normally, Daniel would run to greet me, but this time, there was nothing. No laughter, no footsteps, only silence. I set down my briefcase, unease curling in my chest. "Daniel?" I called out. No answer. As I moved toward the stairs, I heard it, a faint sob, muffled like someone trying hard not to be heard. My pulse quickened. The sound was coming from the guest room. I opened the door and froze. There was Daniel, curled up in the corner, his tiny body trembling. And beside him, Sophia, towering over him with a cold smile. Her hand gripped his wrist, not in love, but in control. "You need to understand," she was whispering harshly. "You're mine. Your father is busy with his world, but I'll always keep you. Don't even think about running to him. Stop!" Daniel cried, tears streaming down his face. "I want Dad." Something inside me snapped. "Sophia!" I roared. She jumped, releasing him instantly, her face morphing into shock. "Watson, I was just—" But I wasn't listening. I scooped Daniel into my arms, holding him tightly as he sobbed against me. My heart was shattering with every tear that stained my shirt. "What were you doing?" My voice was low, trembling with fury. Sophia's eyes widened, then softened, her tone suddenly sugary. "You misunderstood. He was upset. I was trying to calm him down. You know how children are, imaginative, dramatic." Her words slid across my ears like poison, and for the first time, I didn't believe them. Not even a little. Manali appeared in the doorway, her face pale. She had heard it all. Her voice was steady, but her eyes blazed. "Now do you believe me, sir?" Sophia turned on her, her mask cracking. "You! You're always spying, always meddling. You're the reason he doubts me." "Enough," I barked. "This isn't about Manali. This is about my son." Sophia's face twisted, a storm of rage and desperation. Then, just as quickly, she smoothed it over with a smile. "Fine," she said softly. "If you want me gone, say the word. But remember, Watson, no one will love you like I do." She brushed past Manali, her perfume lingering like smoke after a fire. But the damage was done. That night, as I sat with Daniel asleep in my arms, Manali spoke quietly beside me. She won't give up. She sees him as possession, and people like her don't stop until they get what they want. I looked at her, truly looked at her for the first time. Manali wasn't just a waitress. She was a protector, a quiet warrior who had risked her place to defend my child. Gratitude swelled in my chest, mixed with guilt that I had doubted her for so long. "Why are you helping us, Manali?" I asked softly. She hesitated, her gaze falling to the floor. "Because I know what it's like to be a child trapped in fear. I won't let him go through what I once did." Her voice broke, and I realized she was speaking from scars, not sympathy. The next days were tense. Sophia stayed in the house, but her demeanor changed. The sweetness was gone, replaced by thinly veiled hostility. She spoke to me less, but her eyes followed Daniel constantly, like a predator waiting for a moment of weakness. One evening, I received a call from a close friend in finance. His words chilled me to the bone. "Watson, are you sure about Sophia? I traced some activity. She's been contacting lawyers, asking about custody rights and inheritance clauses. Be careful. Custody rights, inheritance." My grip on the phone tightened. The truth was undeniable now. That night I made a decision. I told Manali to keep Daniel close, never leaving him alone with Sophia. I began quietly preparing legal measures, tightening security around the mansion, but Sophia was clever, too clever. She sensed the shift, and she struck back in the most terrifying way. It happened on a stormy night. Rain lashed against the windows, the sky cracking with thunder. I had just returned from my office when Manali came running, her face pale, her voice breaking. "Sir! Daniel, he's not in his room!" The world around me tilted. My blood turned to ice. "What do you mean he's not in his room?" I demanded, already racing up the stairs. The bed was empty. The window slightly ajar, curtains flapping in the storm. Manali's voice trembled. "I saw Sophia heading toward the back garden earlier. I think she took him." For a moment I couldn't breathe. My son, my only son, in her hands. I ran out into the storm, the rain blinding me. My heart pounding like war drums, and then I saw it, through the sheets of rain, Sophia dragging Daniel toward the car. Her face twisted with determination. "Stop!" I screamed, my voice tearing through the night. She froze, her eyes locking on mine. A smile curved her lips, chilling and triumphant. "This is the only way, Watson. He belongs to me now." I sat across from Manali, my hands trembling, my mind drowning in guilt. The words she had spoken still echoed in my head. "Your girlfriend wouldn't let your son go." "Manali," I whispered, my throat dry. "Tell me everything, every detail." She took a deep breath, her eyes glassy with unshed tears. "Watson, that night I was cleaning near the back of the diner. I heard a child crying, your son. He kept saying, 'I want my dad.' When I walked in, your girlfriend was there. She grabbed his arm so tightly he was wincing in pain. I told her to let him go, but she snapped at me. She said, 'This boy doesn't need Watson. He needs to forget his father.' My stomach twisted. I had trusted the wrong person. Blinded by love, blinded by charm, and in doing so I had abandoned the one soul who needed me the most, my son. Why didn't you tell me then?" I asked, my voice cracking. Manali looked down. "Because who was I to you? Just a waitress. I thought you'd think I was lying. But when I saw your son cry, I couldn't stay silent anymore. Her words shattered me. I felt anger, regret, but above all, gratitude. Gratitude that someone, even a stranger, had the courage to speak for my child when I failed to listen. Just then, the door burst open. My girlfriend stormed in, her face red with fury. "So you believe her lies now? A waitress over me?" I stood, my voice firm for the first time in months. "No, I believe my son. I believe the truth I should have seen long ago," she sneered. "You'll regret this, Watson. Without me, you're nothing." But her threats meant nothing anymore. I walked past her and knelt beside my son, who had been silently watching, confusion clouding his little eyes. I hugged him tight. "I'm sorry, son."
"I'm so sorry."
"I should have protected you." He hugged me back, whispering, "It's okay, Daddy. You're here now." Tears streamed down my face. That moment was my redemption. As days passed, my ex faded from our lives like a bad dream. I focused on rebuilding my bond with my son, and Manali, she became more than just the waitress who saved him. She became my friend, my confidant, and slowly, something deeper. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I told her softly, "You were my son's voice when mine was silent." "You saved us both, Manali. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want you in it," she smiled, her eyes shining with warmth. "And I'll never stop speaking the truth for you." And for him. Sometimes the people we overlook, like a humble waitress, can hold the power to change our entire destiny. And sometimes the truth we refuse to hear is the very truth that sets us free.